Bonjour à toutes et à tous et bienvenue dans une nouvelle vidéo sur Learn to French. Je m'appelle Eden et j'enseigne le français. Hello and welcome to another video on Learn to French. If you are new here, my name is Eden and I teach French. Dans la vidéo d'aujourd'hui, nous allons voir un guide de révision pour le français A2. So in today's video, we are going to check out an A2 French study guide. Donc un guide A2, pourquoi? So why do I need an A2 French study guide? Well, it's quite simple. An A2 French study guide is very useful if you are learning French by yourself, si vous apprenez le français tout seul, or if you're preparing for DELF A2, ou bien si vous vous préparez pour le DELF A2. So how should you use this guide? Comment est-ce que je dois utiliser ce guide? First of all, I am going to list down all of the key elements that you're going to need to learn to master your A2 level in French. And once you have them, well, you need to do your own research for the key elements that you don't know, the ones that you've never heard of, or maybe the ones that you need to study again. Do your own research. This is very important because if you do that, if you do your own research by yourself, well, you're going to remember, once again, the steps that you took in order to get there. So this means that you will be able to remember things much easier. Once you've done that, you can simply organize your findings, because unless you're extremely organized in your mind, I know that I'm not, so I always need to organize things that I learn. I can use a binder, or I can simply work on my computer and create folders if I need to. This will also help you find things easily if you are studying for an exam such as the DELF A2, for example. And lastly, I would like you to work on exercises. Now, I am linking some exercises in the description of this video, so you can simply check them out. Those are the main websites that you can use to work on exercises, but you can also choose your own websites. Working on exercises will help you practice what you've just learned. So we are going to organize our findings, well, our key points in categories. The first one is le vocabulaire, vocabulary. The second one is grammaire, grammar. The third one, la phonétique. The fourth one, la conjugaison, conjugation. And lastly, which we didn't have in the A1 French study guide, l'orthographe, the spelling. So regarding your main communication skills that you need to learn for A2, they are pretty basic. You need to add them, of course, on top of what you know from the DELF A1 or the A1 level. So, parler de sa ville, parler de sa famille, parler de son travail ou de ses vacances, parler de ses goûts. So, these are very common communication skills because learning a language is about communicating, not just grammar or vocabulary. You need to communicate with others. Raconter un événement, so to talk about an event. Raconter un souvenir, talk about a memory or memories. Raconter un souvenir. Utiliser les formules de politesse. Inviter quelqu'un, accepter ou refuser une invitation. Donner son avis, give your opinion. Décrire une personne ou un lieu en détail. Demander ou donner des informations. Parler de ses projets dans l'avenir. Parler de son pays ou de sa culture. This can be important for the DELF A2 because sometimes you might come across a production orale that is going to ask you to talk about your country or your culture. Comprendre des indications ou des instructions, par exemple. So these are the main communication skills that you need to add on top of your A1 level skills. Le vocabulaire. Donc le vocabulaire, once again, this is what you need to add to the A1 level. L'environnement, the environment, la santé et le corps humain, health and human body, so this is the vocabulary regarding the human body and health, le sport, le travail, les régions de France et quelques spécialités. Now, regions in France and specialties. This is also useful for the DELF A2 because I like to say that learning a language is not just about the language, itself, but it's also about the country or countries behind that language. La cuisine, the kitchen, so the vocabulary, and a more in-depth look into the vocabulary of the kitchen and cooking. L'hôtellerie et la restauration, so hotels and restaurants, you need to know this vocabulary, hotel rooms, etc. Le tourisme, tourism, les expressions imagées, so this is where I start to teach figurative expressions to my students. Les unités de mesure, so units of measurement as well. Les pourcentages, percentages. Les fractions, fractions. Les événements au travail, work events, but you can also apply that to, for example, what's happening in your neighborhood. Les événements dans le quartier, par exemple, ou à l'école. La maison, so décoration ou style, housing, decoration or style. Les fêtes et les célébrations, so celebrations. So you can learn the main ones in France, so holidays and celebrations in France, but also maybe learn how to say your own celebrations from your own country in French. La grammaire. So this is what we should learn for grammar in A2 or before taking the DELF A2. Exprimer les quantités, so expressing quantities. So you can simply search in Google, exprimer les quantités or expressing quantities in French, and you can find many lessons. Les pronoms toniques, tonic pronouns, le pronom on, the pronoun on, and how we use it in French. This is also where I start teaching about le COD et le COI, so direct object and indirect object. If you're curious about this one as well, I am linking the article of this video with the links in there to some extra lessons for you. So I have also worked on le COD and le COI, so don't forget to check that out as well. I have a video on that. Les pronoms COD et COI, which go along with the direct object and indirect object, we have the pronouns. So direct object pronouns, pronom COD, and indirect object pronouns, pronom COI. Le pronom en in French. So the pronoun en in French, you need to know how to use this starting A2, and its cousin, le pronom I, the pronoun I, just the letter Y. Les expressions utilisées pour la comparaison, so the expressions that you're going to use to compare, for comparison. Plus grand que, plus petit que, etc. Les pronoms relatifs qui et que. So the use of qui and que as relative pronouns. Exprimer la possession, so express possession. Les pronoms possessifs, which goes along with the previous point. Les pronoms possessifs, possessive pronouns. Le mien, la mienne, les miens, le tien, la tienne, and many more. Exprimer la durée, so express the duration of something or an event. Exprimer la fréquence, express frequency. What words do you need to learn for this? Exprimer la condition avec si. So express condition with si, the word si. Les pronoms démonstratifs, so demonstrative pronouns. Celui, celle, ce, etc. The use of bon and bien, bon versus bien. Bon, which is an adjective, and bien, which is an adverb. Beaucoup versus très, so the use of beaucoup and très, which are both adverbs this time. Les adverbes de manière ending in ment. So adverbs of manner ending in ment, M-E-N-T. How do we form them? When do we use them? Why do we use them? Etc. Les verbes qui utilisent a et de. So this is also important. Verbs that are using a and de afterwards. There are many lists online that you can find. Donner un conseil, give an advice. So what grammar do you need to learn to give an advice in French? Donner un ordre, give a command or an order. Formuler des questions en français, so you can use inversion, est-ce que, or intonation, so formulate questions in French using those three techniques. When do you use them? Le discours rapporté au présent, so reported speech at the present tense. So for example, il dit que, he says that, le discours rapporté. Ensuite, les différences entre a et chez. So you need to know the differences between a and chez and when to use them. Les conjonctions de coordination. So correlative conjunctions. Words such as mais, ou, et, donc, or, ni, and car. Those are small words that are going to help improve your speech in French, but you need to learn when to use them. L'accord du participe passé. So the agreement of past participle. Usually this is where you will start learning that with the verb avoir, you might have an agreement of the past participle somewhere in the sentence. Usually what we learn is that le verbe avoir, if you use the auxiliary verb avoir, your past participle will not agree with the subject nor the object of the sentence. But that's not always the case, and you need to learn about this accord du participe passé or agreement of the past participle. La préposition pour. So the preposition pour. And lastly, demander à quelqu'un de faire quelque chose. So ask someone to do something. What grammar do you need to learn to ask someone to do something? La phonétique. So on top of what you already know from A1, you need to add les liaisons obligatoires, so mandatory liaison. Just as a reminder, une liaison, a liaison, is when you pronounce the last letter of the first word when it's not supposed to be pronounced, and you link it to the next word, if it's a vowel. So, which liaisons are obligatoires? Mandatory. L'intonation, the intonation. La lettre U et le son U, so the letter U and the sound U. So when you see a letter like this in between brackets, it's regarding the International Phonetic Alphabet. This is how we pronounce a letter or a sound universally. So learning the International Phonetic Alphabet is going to help you work on your pronunciation in French. Orthographe, so spelling. These are the main points that you need to focus on regarding spelling in A2. How to write le son O. There are many ways to write this sound. E-A-U, A-U, or just the letter O. L'élision, so the elision. So an elision is when, for example, you have an article such as le or la, but we simply cut it and link it to the next word, which is starting with a vowel with an apostrophe, such as l'élision right here. We have a perfect example. Et ou est, the words et and est, you need to pay attention not to mix them up. The next spelling point that you need to work on is when should I use et with an acute accent and when should I use et, er at the end of a word. Trust me, even French speakers will make this mistake. So I want you, starting A2, to know how not to make this mistake. And lastly, the words où, or, and où, where. La conjugaison. Let's now take a look at conjugation. The conjugation that you need to learn for A2 in French. Les verbes du troisième groupe, au présent de l'indicatif. So third group verbs in present tense. This is really important for you to know and master. Le conditionnel présent. So you can start learning le conditionnel présent, the conditional mood, especially the conditional present tense. How to form it and when to use it. For example, verbs such as j'aimerais, je voudrais, etc. So try to get familiar with le conditionnel. Le subjonctif présent. So this is an introduction as well to le subjonctif présent. You need to learn what is le subjonctif présent and when should we use it and what it looks like. Les révisions. Révision. You need to review these main elements. L'impératif présent. You've studied it in A1 and you need to review it in A2. Les révisions, le passé composé versus imparfait. This is also very important. I have some students that are already in B2 and still mix up passé composé and imparfait. So you are better off learning this in A2. The verbs être, avoir, venir, and aller in the main tenses. Le présent, le passé composé, l'imparfait, le futur simple, le conditionnel présent. And the same tenses for these three verbs, devoir, pouvoir, and vouloir. These are very important verbs in French that we are going to use on a daily basis, and you need to master their conjugation. That way you don't need to stress out anymore. You know those tenses, you know those verbs in those different tenses. So don't forget that you have the link in the description of this video. That way you can have everything listed down for you, and I hope that this is going to help you out. Cette vidéo est maintenant terminée. I hope that you enjoyed checking out this quick A2 study guide in French. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments down below. Merci beaucoup d'être resté avec moi aujourd'hui et je vous dis à très bientôt pour une nouvelle vidéo. Au revoir!